Hello students, now we are going to learn the next chapter in biobotany, ecosystem. What is meant by ecosystem? It is the integration of all the living and non-living factors in the environment. It is the interaction of living and non-living components of the environment. A.G. Tansley defined this ecosystem as a system resulting from the integration of all living and non-living factors of the environment. And he has proposed the term ecosystem. Odum in 1962 defined ecosystem as the structural and functional unit of ecology. Now the structure of ecosystem. Ecosystem consists of two components: abiotic components that are non-living and biotic components that are living. Abiotic components include all the climatic factors such as air, water, sunlight, rainfall, temperature, humidity of a particular place. It also includes the adaptive factor like soil, air, soil, water and pH of soil. Topography, in which latitude and the altitude a particular region or ecosystem lies, and organic components such as carbohydrate, proteins, lipids, humic substances also becomes a part of the abiotic component of ecosystem, and inorganic substances like carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus all become the components, non-living components or the abiotic components of the ecosystem. Biotic components include all the plants that are autotrophic and all the animals that depend on the plant. Heterotrophic components we call consumers. Plants are considered as producers, and they also include the macro consumers and the micro consumers. So macro consumers are the herbivores, carnivores and omnivores, whereas micro consumers are the decomposers like bacteria, actinomycetes and fungi that decompose dead and decay of the plants and animals. So these are the biotic factors: microorganism, plants, animals, bacteria, fungus. Abiotic factor: water, soil, light, minerals and air. What are the functions of ecosystem? Light is very essential. Primarily, the energy is transferred from the sun. Sun has large amount of energy in the form of light and heat. The amount of light that is available for the photosynthetic plant is called as photosynthetically active radiation. In short, we say PAR, photosynthetically active radiation. It lies in the wavelength of the rays from 400 to 700 nanometer. So 400 to 700 nanometer wavelength of the light becomes available for the plants for the preparation of the food during photosynthesis, by the process photosynthesis. So this power will not be always constant. It will be varying because of the presence of the shades of the trees, clouds, dust particle, latitude, length of the daylight, etc. Out of the total sunlight that is received by the earth, about 34% of it is reflected back into the atmosphere, and 10% will be held by the ozone layer itself. Ozone, water vapor and other atmospheric gases will absorb 10% of the sunlight. In the remaining 56%, about 2 to 10% of solar energy will be used by the green plants. And the amount of the sunlight that is used by the green plants can be detected by the instrument called photovoltaic detectors. And it is expressed, the power or the photosynthetically active radiation is expressed in millimoles per square meter per second using an instrument called silicon photovoltaic detectors. And they can measure the radiation from 0 to 3000 millimoles. Next, let us see the types of carbon. There are different types of carbon on this universe. Green carbon, this is stored in the biosphere by the process of photosynthesis. They are present in the green leaves, green portion of the plant, and so it is green carbon. Grey carbon, carbon which is stored in the fossil fuel. Fossil fuels are coal, petrol, biogas, etc. and they get deposited in the lithosphere under the earth. They are called as grey carbon. What is blue carbon? Carbon that is stored in the atmospheric air and the ocean. That is called blue carbon. Brown carbon. This is stored in the industrialized forest. Industrialized forest means wood which is used for the commercial activities. That is called brown carbon. Black carbon. This is the carbon which is emitted from the gas, diesel, engine, coal which is fired in the power plant and pollute the atmosphere. Now let us learn the productivity of the ecosystem. Utilizing the sun's energy, how much of energy products are produced? So how this energy is transferred from one level to another? The rate of biomass production per unit area in a unit time is called as productivity. The sunlight is absorbed by the plants and they produce the starch or the chemical energy out of it. The light energy from the sun is converted into chemical energy in the form of biomass, and the rate of biomass production per unit area in a unit time is called productivity. It is classified into primary productivity, secondary productivity and community productivity. First, primary productivity. This is the energy stored in the autotrophs or the plants. What is a gross primary productivity or GPP? It is a total energy that is produced out of photosynthesis. And what is a net primary productivity? Net primary productivity is equal to gross primary productivity minus respiration. The plants produce the energy in the form of food and they utilize this during respiration. They respire, certain amount of energy is lost by their respiration. Certain amount of energy is lost by their respiration and they utilize for their own physiological activities and growth. And subtracting this from the gross primary productivity, we will get the net primary productivity. The next one is called as secondary productivity. This is the energy which is stored in the heterotrophs. So the energy is transferred from one trophic level from the producers to the consumers. The secondary productivity is present in the consumers or the heterotrophs. So it is transferred from autotrophs to heterotrophs. Here the gross secondary productivity is equal to, that is GSP is equal to the amount of biomass that is ingested by the organism minus feces. The net secondary productivity is the GSP minus respiration. So during respiration they convert this biomass into energy and they utilize for their growth and development and for their survival, and that when we subtract we will get the net secondary productivity. What is community productivity? This is the energy which is stored in the group of plants. The rate of net synthesis of the organic matter, that is biomass, by a group of plants per unit area per unit time is called as community productivity. What are the factors that affect the primary productivity? Primary productivity depend on the plant species of an area, photosynthetic capacity of the plant, availability of the nutrients in the soil, solar radiation, precipitation which means rainfall, soil type, and the topographic factors such as altitude, latitudes and direction of wind, etc. Now let us learn the concept of trophic level in an ecosystem. The Greek word trophic means to food or feeding. The trophic level refers to the position of an organism in the food chain. For example, if this is the food chain, plants are in the primary level, they are the autotrophs. They produce their own food, and these plants are eaten by rabbit. The next organism in the food chain is rabbit, and rabbit will be eaten by the snake. Snake will be eaten by the eagle. So this is the food chain. So in which position an organism lies in the food chain becomes the trophic level of the organism. So what is trophic level? Trophic level refers to the position of an organism in the food chain. The number of trophic levels will be equal to the number of steps in the food chain. So green plants occupy the first trophic level. They are producers. First trophic level is occupied by producers. Second trophic level is occupied by the primary consumers that feed on the producers. They are herbivores. These herbivores are eaten by the carnivores. They become the third trophic level. They are called as secondary consumers. And these primary carnivores are eaten by the secondary carnivores. And they lie on the fourth trophic level or tertiary consumers. But all these level organisms can be or eaten by an omnivore like crow. Next we have energy flow. The transfer of energy in an ecosystem between the trophic levels can be termed as energy flow. The transfer of energy in an ecosystem between the trophic levels can be termed as energy flow. The energy from the sunlight is absorbed by the green plants for the production of the starch, and these green plants are eaten by the herbivores. So energy is transferred from sun to the producers or plants. Again, the energy from the producers are transferred to the primary consumers or the herbivores, and from the herbivores the energy is transferred to the carnivores, and this is called energy flow. Energy flow is always unidirectional in an ecosystem. It cannot be the reverse. It cannot be the reverse. The energy from the carnivores cannot be taken up by the herbivores, and from the herbivores the energy cannot be taken up by the plants, and from plants sun will not take the energy. So it cannot be bidirectional. It is always unidirectional. Energy flow is always unidirectional in an ecosystem. Now let us learn the laws of thermodynamics. It deals with the storage and the loss of energy in an ecosystem, and it is based on two laws. The first law of thermodynamics states that energy can be transmitted from one system to another in various forms, but the energy will not be lost or destroyed, or it will not be created or added, and so the quantity of energy present in the universe becomes a constant. So this is the first law of thermodynamics. The energy is converted from one form to another. Energy is neither created nor destroyed, and so the total amount of the energy in the universe remains constant. The second law of thermodynamics states that energy transformation results in the reduction of the free energy in the system. So usually the energy get transferred from one level to the another level, and the transformation cannot be 100% efficient. For example, amount of energy given by the sunlight is 1000 joules. The amount of energy that is supplied by the sunlight is 1000 joules, but the whole 1000 joules, when they are fixed in the producers, when they are fixed in the biomass of the producers, only 100 joules of energy will be transferred, will be consumed by the primary consumers, and the remaining 900 joules of energy will be lost for their survival and for their physiological activities in the first trophic level itself. Similarly, from the second trophic level, if the total energy present in the primary consumer is 100 joules, out of which 90 joules of energy will be lost by the organism, will be used up by the organism by respiration and by their physiological activities and for their survival, and only 10% of this trophic level will be transferred to the next trophic level, third trophic level. Similarly, from here only 1 joule of energy will be transferred to the tertiary consumers or the fourth trophic level. The remaining 9 joules of energy will be lost by the third trophic level. So it goes on like that, and this is called as 10% law. The transfer of energy is irreversible natural process. Now let us learn food chain. The movement of the energy from one trophic level to another trophic level is called food chain. It moves from the producers to the top carnivores. There are two types of food chain. First food chain is called as grazing food chain. So grazing food chain will start from the grass, and grass producers are eaten by the herbivores, primary consumers, here mouse, and mouse is eaten by the snake, and snake is eaten by the eagle. So snake is the secondary consumer and eagle is a tertiary consumer, and this is the grazing food chain. Whereas in the detritus food chain, the fallen leaves, the dry and aged leaves that fall from the plants will be consumed by the earthworms. So this fallen leaves are the detritus, and these are consumed by the earthworm, which are called as detritivorous, and these earthworms are consumed by the blackbird, which becomes the small carnivores, and blackbirds are eaten by the hawks, which becomes the top carnivores, and this food chain is called as detritus food chain. Next we have the food web. What is food web? The interlocking pattern of number of food chain is called as food web. So we can see, we can have a number of food chain from this food web. For example, the first food chain is the grass eaten by the rabbit, rabbit by the hawk. Grass, second food chain, grass or plants eaten by the mouse, mouse eaten by the snake, snake eaten by the hawk. The third food chain, the grass which is eaten by the grasshopper, grasshopper eaten by the lizard, lizard eaten by the hawk. Like that, when many food chains are interlocked in a pattern, it is called as food web. What are the significance of food web? Construction of the food web will help to describe the species interaction, and this is called direct interaction. So constructed food chain helps to describe the species interaction called direct interaction. This can also illustrate the indirect interaction among different species. It will help us to study the bottom-up and top-down control of the community structure. It will help us to reveal the different patterns of energy transfer in different ecosystems like terrestrial ecosystem, aquatic ecosystem, grassland, etc. Now let us learn about the ecological pyramids. What are these ecological pyramids? They are the graphical representation of the trophic structure and their function at each successive trophic level of an ecosystem. And this was first described, this concept of ecological pyramids was first introduced and given by Charles Elton in 1927, and they are called as Eltonian pyramids. He gave us three types of pyramids. They are the pyramids of number, pyramids of biomass, and pyramids of energy. In the pyramids of number, it is a geographical represent of the number of organisms present in the successive trophic level of an ecosystem. Here, the number of producers must be more in number than the number of herbivores, and herbivores must be more in number than the number of primary carnivores, and primary carnivores must be more in number than the number of secondary carnivores. Similarly, this is the pond ecosystem. Here, the bottommost trophic level represent more number of organisms in the as a producers in the trophic level 1. The trophic level 2, the organism number is less. So as the size of the organism becomes large, the number of organism become less, and so the pyramid of number will be usually upright. In the forest ecosystem, the pyramid of number will be somewhat spindle shaped because the base T1, the tropic level 1, which is a tree. This occupies tree. If it is a large tree, the number will be 1. Many organisms can depend on the single tree for their food, and so the number of organisms in the tropic level 2 in the herbivores will become more, and the number of organisms that feed on these herbivores may be less. Similarly, the top carnivores may become less, and so it takes a shape of a spindle. So the pyramid of number of the forest ecosystem is spindle shaped. In the parasite ecosystem will be inverted. Here the number of organisms in the tropic level 1 will be very less. Normally it can be a tree. The organisms that depend on this tree will be more. Number of organisms become more. And in the T3, tropic level 3, the number of parasites which depend on these organisms becomes more. Similarly, the parasites that depend on these parasites, they are also more in number, and so the number of organisms increases in the successive tropic level from the producers to the tertiary consumers in case of parasite ecosystem, and so it becomes an inverted pyramid of number. Pyramid of biomass. This is a geographical representation of the amount of organic material or the biomass present at each successive tropic level of an ecosystem. The biomass which is produced in the grassland at the tropic level 1 will be more than the consumers, primary consumers. Similarly, the biomass of the tropic level 3 will be less than the biomass of tropic level 2. Then only this food chain can sustain. And so what is biomass? It is the dry weight per unit area in different types of ecosystem. The pyramid of biomass will be upright, whereas in the pond ecosystem the pyramid of biomass will be inverted. Why? Because the biomass of the smaller organism altogether, even if we keep, it will be smaller than the organism size of the organism in the tropic level 2 as well as in the case of tropic level 3. So biomass increases in the case of pond ecosystem, and so it becomes a inverted pyramid. Next we have the pyramid of energy. So this is the geographical representation of energy flow at successive tropic level of an ecosystem. It is always upright. Why? Because the transfer of energy from one tropic level to another tropic level will be always 10% according to the 10% law, and so it is decreased. Now we shall learn biogeochemical cycles or nutrient cycles. This is nothing but the exchange of the nutrients between organisms and their environment. So nutrients are in the form of elements in the physical environment, and they get into the body of the organisms. Once again, when these organisms die, they are returned back to the physical environment. Like this, circulation of nutrients take place within the ecosystem, within the components of the ecosystem or biosphere, and this is known as biogeochemical cycle. And they are also called as cycling of materials. There are two types of cycles. First one is gaseous cycle, which will include the cycling of oxygen, carbon and nitrogen among the living and the non-living components. Second one is called the sedimentary cycle, that includes the phosphorus, sulfur and calcium. These are normally present as sediments of earth. First we are going to learn about the carbon cycle. Circulation of carbon between the organisms and the environment is called carbon cycle. Carbon becomes an inevitable element which is present both in the organism and in the atmosphere, and they get exchanged because of the two reciprocal processes. One is a photosynthesis that will fix the carbon dioxide in the living body of the plant cell and forms the food and synthesize the food for the plants. The second one is that respiration, during which They inhale the oxygen and carbon dioxide from the living organism's body is exhaled out. The releasing of the carbon in the atmosphere also increases due to the burning of the fossil fuels, deforestation, forest fire, volcanic eruption, decomposition of dead organic matter, etc. So here we can see when the decomposition of the organic matter, etc. takes place, carbon dioxide is released even by the combustion during respiration of the organisms. When anything burns like forest fire, the carbon dioxide is evolved out and it is present in the atmospheric air. Maximum amount of the carbon dioxide is utilized by the plants for the production of their food through photosynthesis. Next cycle is the phosphorus cycle. It is a type of sedimentary cycle, as we have told already. We know that phosphorus is found in maximum number of biomolecules like DNA, RNA, ATP, NADP and phospholipid molecules of the living organisms. Phosphorus is not abundant in the biosphere, but it is present in the rock deposit, marine sediment, guano. Guano is nothing but the excreta of the marine birds, which contains large amount of phosphorus, and it is used as a fertilizer for the plants, because plants need phosphorus for their better growth and development. They absorb this phosphorus from the soil in the ionic form. So the phosphorus that is released from the rock deposit by the weathering process gets circulated in the lithosphere and the hydrosphere. Lithosphere is the molecules around the molecules that are present in the rocks, and hydrosphere in the water. So when it comes to the hydrosphere and the soil, they are absorbed by the plants for their growth in the form of phosphate ions. From there they get into the organism's body, herbivores, carnivores, etc., and they transfer to different trophic level through the food chain. And once again, after the death of the organisms, they are all returned back to the soil by the degradation. The death of the organism and the degradation of the dead bodies of these organisms by the decomposers, the phosphorus is again returned back into the lithosphere and hydrosphere to maintain this phosphorus cycle.